Hi everyone, welcome to our session on Mastering Flow. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let me start by asking, what do we all have in common with the inspiring athletes that we just saw? Well, we all have the mechanics and the ability to achieve peak performance and well-being. So we want to help you see how we can bring more of that into our lives, as individuals and as leaders, and really achieve that peak cognitive mental state. We've got 45 minutes together to look at why mastering flow, why now, to see what you can expect from this program and what leaders can get from it, and also how the Business Reimagined approach is different. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Kay. I'm a qualified mental fitness coach and peak performance coach. I've been working with leaders, developing them globally for the last 15 years. And my colleague, Michelle McCartan, is a best-selling author, a leader, a businesswoman, and someone who specializes in peak performance and psychological fitness. We were inspired to create Business Reimagined to help leaders and their businesses realize their potential and consistently feel and perform at their best. And we believe this is possible despite the challenges that leaders are facing in their daily lives. These challenges aren't going anywhere, and we're going to explore those a little bit now. The research says that there's going to be more change in the next 10 years than there has been in the last 100. So that is huge. The world, you could say, is more VUCA than ever, certainly more complex. If we think of some of the macro challenges that organizations and leaders are facing, we're looking at things such as globalization, AI, we're looking at the effects of the pandemic and even increased competition. But we've also got the micro challenges that leaders are facing as well. So see if you can recognize any of these in your increasing workload. What the research shows is that leaders have double the amount of emails now than they used to have. Research is showing that 25% of people are thinking about leaving their employers in the next year. Think about the impact that that's going to have on leaders as well and on organizations. In a study of 15,000 leaders, 60% of them said that they felt exhausted by the end of the day. So as we said, we've got the micro challenges, and the organizational psychologist Adam Grant uses the term languishing to describe how leaders are feeling. Here's how he described it. Let me see if this resonates with anyone. It wasn't burnout, we still had energy. It wasn't depression, we didn't feel hopeless. We just felt somewhat joyless and aimless. And it turns out there's a name for that, languishing. So that's what leaders are feeling. And how are people responding to these challenges? Well, again, if we go back to the research, what we're seeing is that 43% of leaders say they lack clarity. 53% are unhappy at work, so more than half. Nearly 3/4 say they're burned out or chronically distracted. And a whopping 84% say they're stressed. Now, we know that stress isn't good for us, but from an individual and an organizational perspective, we do not perform at our best when we're stressed, when we're burned out. And that's why we decided to create this program, our Mastering Flow program. So this is where we work with organizations, and our Mastering Flow program starts at the beginning. It starts with self-leadership. Leaders need to be able to feel and perform at their best and really live from a place of well-being and high performance. And that's what helps them to achieve the people and cultural priorities, engage their teams, inspire their teams, and it helps them lead and drive business transformation. So all of this led us to see how can we help leaders to feel and perform at their best and help their organizations to thrive. Let us tell you a little bit about the Mastering Flow program now.
So thanks, Kay, and hi everyone. As Kay said, we can see that challenges are pretty prevalent right now around the world and in our organizations. But the good news that we want to share with you, and there is good news, is that the science shows us that we're biologically hardwired to tackle challenges. So there's always been challenges in our evolutionary path. There'll always be challenges we can imagine. But as Zach Mercurio, he's a researcher and an author in this area, as he says, we know that human beings don't thrive despite their challenges. They actually thrive precisely because of their challenges. So what he's saying really is that through our challenges, we realize what incredible resources, what incredible potential we've got available to us. So challenges kind of baked into the system to enable us to perform our best and feel our best. So if we continue with the sporting theme that we started with at the beginning of the session today, surfing. Now, I don't know if any of you are keen surfers. I can't say that I am, but it is surprisingly a 1,000-year-old sport. So between 400 AD and 1996, the biggest wave that was ever surfed was 25 feet. Now, to me, a surfing novice, that sounds like a lot. And people actually thought that it was impossible for humans, like against the laws of physics, to go further than that. But today, surfers are regularly paddling into waves up to 60 feet. And they're actually towing into waves over 100 feet. So we've well and truly moved beyond that limit and gone, really to prove that that challenge is one that we were capable of achieving. But it isn't just surfing. If we look at some other sporting realms, we've got the likes of Roger Bannister, the 4-minute mile. We've got the likes of Kipchoge, that sub 2-hour marathon, which is just incredible. But it's not just sports. We think about science, and we've got Einstein and the theory of relativity. Or culture. We've got Rosa Parks, sitting on that bus, refusing to give up her seat. We could all come up with our own sort of inspirational heroes that their actions changed history forever. Is it just these people though? These what we see maybe sometimes as a special few? The good news and what we want to really help people see is that we're all designed, we're all biologically rewarded for overcoming challenge. So maybe you can think of your own challenge, maybe something that looked impossible, but you did it. So for me, I didn't think I could write a book, and then I wrote 3. So if we want to overcome these challenges that Kay's kind of presented to us, we need to work with our biology, not against it. So the human mind, the human operating system is incredible, but it's innocently misunderstood. And if we don't understand any system, whether that be technology or whether that be our mind, we're not going to get the best out of it. So getting our biology to work for us is really at the heart of all our programs. And that's really different to traditional training programs. And it's hugely powerful. So one incredible part of our biology is that we've got an inbuilt mechanism for flow. So this is the optimal state where we feel our best and we perform our best. So maybe you call it, being in the zone or on fire, or simply just, performing well. But it's that state of relaxed high performance. It feels kind of effortless. It feels a bit like the heavy lifting is being done for us. It feels good. We are hardwired for this place. We're designed for it. It's part of the system. So what does the research show as the impact of flow in our lives? So flow turbo boosts our performance. So all aspects of physical and cognitive performance go up. Why? Evolution did this to enable our survival. So flow amplifies everything that we need to fight over dwindling resources, flee to prevent being someone else's resource, but also to get creative, to get collaborative, to get innovative, and to make more resources. So with that being the case for the physical, we see strength go up, endurance go up, muscle reaction times increase. But for us today, we're going to focus on the cognitive. So let's give you a feel for what happens in flow. So a 10-year study by McKinsey looked at top executives around the world, and they reported a 500% increase in productivity and motivation when in flow. So, I mean, incredible when we think about that statistic. But as Stephen Kotler, the head of the Flow Research Collective, says, you could work on Monday, take the rest of the week off, and get the same amount done. So suddenly we start looking at output, not input, not time. So that sounds good to me and appealing. It's not just there. Flow is one of the biggest drivers of creativity, of innovation, of breakthroughs. So researchers at the University of Sydney in Australia gave participants problems to solve. It's a whole range of problems, and they found that there was over 400% increase in creativity and problem solving when those participants were in flow. And other research done by the Flow Research Collective has found that could be up to 700%. And what we know is that people are not just more creative when they're in flow, they're also more creative up to a day after the flow state. So it's got a longer term impact. And we know that in this world, this VUCA world, as Kay talked about, we've got more challenges and we need more innovation. And it's predicted by many organizations that, innovation is going to be our key leadership quality by the time we reach 2030, if it's not already. So this is key. When it comes to learning and memory, we get a 200 to 400% increase or more in flow. So from a biological perspective, the more neurochemicals that show up during an experience, the better chance that we've got for that experience to go from short-term to long-term memory and for us to be able to call upon it when we need it. So lots of benefits. Here's some more. We won't go into them all today, but we get an increase in meaning and purpose. We get an increase in grit, persistence, resilience, collaboration and cooperation, but also an increase in empathy and ecological awareness. So we're thinking more about the world out there than the world in here. And that's definitely one of the characteristics of flow. But it's not just an impact on our performance, it's also an impact on our well-being. So all the research shows us that people who spend more time in flow feel happier. They live longer and they've got a greater sense of well-being. So if we think about, well, how does that happen? A couple of specifics for you today. When we're in flow, stress chemicals are flushed out of the system and they're replaced by those feel-good endorphins. Boost of immunity happens, so healing goes up. The likelihood of infection goes down. So really important in today's COVID world. So the impact of flow on our performance and well-being is huge. And, understandably, with all that research, we can see that it's not surprising that individuals and businesses are starting to take flow a lot more seriously. And recently, Forbes came out with this quote, seeing our flow state percentage is really the #1 management metric. And we can see why. So if you just take a moment and think about what percentage of your work time are you in flow, versus we could say unproductive busyness, like a dog chasing its tail, or maybe resistance and procrastination. Neither of these states do we feel good or do we perform our best. So then if we take it away from just thinking about us as an individual, we think about this organizationally. What's the bottom line impact on our organizations when we're collectively spending limited time in flow? So the potential is huge. So with all the research that's been done on flow, what we know is that flow is measurable, as we said. So what gets measured gets managed. Universal. So it turns up in anyone. So as long as certain conditions are met, it doesn't matter what, our age, our occupation, our gender, our culture, or our income, and any other, categorization. It's universal. And it's also trainable. So amazing results happen when we train people in flow. So up to 70 to 80% increase in flow from research at the Flow Research Collective. And it's scientifically researched. So it's based on leading neuroscience that's really excelled over the last decade. So huge, transformation that's occurred in the disciplines over the last 10 years. So for all these reasons, hopefully we've given you a good feel. we really believe investing in flow training is key to individuals and to organizations to meet those challenges that they're experiencing. With this in mind, we want to introduce you today to the Mastering Flow series, so that you get a feel for the impact this can have individually, but also that it can have organizationally. So it's highly experiential as a series, and we give people a map of the flow cycle. So we help them understand what tools and what triggers to deploy at each stage, and really help them to orientate themselves and build more flow in their life. So they leave with their little toolkit that really gives them all they need to be able to access flow now and into the future. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper and just give you a feel for some of the components of the program and why they're so important. So mindset, such a game-changing foundation to a high flow lifestyle. So how do our minds work? How might our mindset be limiting our performance and our well-being and preventing us from getting into flow? Why do we struggle to focus? All really important questions. So we get super practical about how our minds work. Conversation that many of us have never had. We help people to build a limitless mindset for overcoming challenges and really understand how we can reduce our cognitive load. So be it like closing down all the tabs on a computer, taking the weight off our mind so we can work in a much more optimal state as we're designed to work. Managing the emotional roller coaster. So our goal is to make our nervous system work for us rather than against us. And that way we can develop greater resilience and clarity to really face these challenges. So to do that, it's really key to understand what are our emotions, and in particular, stress. One of our most challenging emotions. We all experience stress, but often we misunderstand it, which can keep us really in the struggle phase of the flow cycle, which is, often how people describe what they're feeling at the moment quite consistently. So we'd rather help them come through the struggle phase and out the other side into flow. So then we look at the corporate athlete. So in this world where so many people are exhausted, burnt out, languishing, as Kay referred to the Adam Grant New York Times article, it can be impossible in these places to get into flow. So we look at how to become burnout proof. We look at optimum energy expenditure and active recovery cycles. So we can really create an upward trajectory in our performance and in our well-being. So we help people to create their own active recovery plans and really embed them into their life as a non-negotiable. We also look at defending our focus. This can be really hard in today's day and age where there's literally a war for our attention. Whether it's the emails that we get, the constant interruptions, or the data points that we've got to keep an eye on and systems, we're chronically distracted. But focus is a non-negotiable precursor to flow. So you literally cannot get into flow unless you're in the here and the now. So we offer a fresh perspective on time and on technology and look at research-based approaches for how we can combat this distraction and eliminate overwhelm. So we help people to create their own distraction management plans and carve out more distraction-free time in their day so they can do deep work, not just surface work. And then we lift the lid on what really motivates us to be at our best. And we do this using the lens of neuroscience. So we start with the building block of curiosity, and we add passion and purpose to craft this really powerful stack of intrinsic motivators that people can really build their life and their work around, and combine it with the autonomy and the goals to really turbo boost their actions. And then we've got the added option of looking at the collective form of flow, which is really when a group of people enter into flow together. So if we think of what you've heard today and what you know of flow is, fantastic and appealing, group flow takes that to a whole other level. So studies show that the collective form of flow is our favorite experience on earth, even more than individual flow. So it's pretty appealing. So maybe you've seen it on the sporting field with your favorite team, or maybe you've experienced it in your own sporting life, or you've had a great brainstorming session or a great meeting. In all of those kind of instances, when we experience it, the collective, the unit, is stronger than the sum of the individuals that are in it. So group flow is an incredibly meaningful and satisfying experience, and it's underpinned by really powerful neurochemistry that creates really incredible results. So we create a formula for group flow with organizations to help them embed it in their own group situations. And then ultimately, we help leaders to both live and lead a flow culture and create that kind of lasting ripples of transformation. So as I say, people walk away with their flow toolkit. So there's a quick feel for it for you. All of it is anchored to the flow cycle map, which was developed at Harvard University. It really helps people know which tools to use at which stage of the cycle. So whether it's an active recovery plan, a distraction plan, energy management, or a group flow framework, all of it is covered in the toolkit. So all of our programs, whether it's this one or other Business Reimagine programs, have one-on-one leadership coaching at their core because we know it works. Being rated by people across the research as having the singular biggest beneficial impact on our behaviours. So our coaching is based, of course, in the principles of peak performance neuroscience, leadership, and flow science. And that really is aiming to create real shifts within the leader that then has a ripple effect in their business and equips them to deal with the problems they've got in the right here, right now, but also those they're going to face in the future. So we use these one-on-one coaching sessions to dive deep and combine them with experiential group workshops of about 90 minutes that deliver both the inspiring and research-based content as well as the opportunity for group coaching. So what's the impact of building a high flow lifestyle? Well, on the left is what research shows us we feel when we've got a low flow lifestyle. And that's what many of us are experiencing now. On the right-hand side, the transitions we see building a high flow lifestyle. So whether that's going from the frantic rushing and exhaustion to pacing and actively recovering, or from that sense of being easily distracted to having a more laser-like focus, you really can see the difference and the ability for that to impact our performance and our well-being. And then at an organizational level, so huge transformation is possible when the leaders of a business really commit to living this flow culture themselves, that high flow lifestyle, and then using that to role model and to lead the change within their organizations and create that broader ripples of transformation. So that's why we start here. But many organizations go through this and then come to us and want us to support them to really share this with their teams, share it more broadly in their organization, and we partner with them to do that. So hopefully we've given you a feel for the program, and Kay is going to let us know now what's different about this to other programs.
So it's sometimes difficult to explain how programs can be different. So hopefully you've got a sense of some of the aspects as well. And I just want to recover those because we've looked at why the program was created, the challenges that leaders are facing, the macro and the micro challenges. And we've looked a little bit about what the program contains and a little bit about the structure, small group coaching sessions with one-to-one coaching sessions. But it is important to think about why this is different. Michelle and I have both worked in this industry for me for 15 years and Michelle for 20 years. And that means that we've seen a lot of how it works in other organizations, other consultancies as well. And we know that our program is different. Firstly, when we don't know how to use something, we don't use it properly. And this is one of the key differences that we want to bring with our program. So if we think about it as when you drive a car, if you didn't know your car had 5 gears, you might just drive it the entire time in first gear. Now, of course, that's going to be hugely ineffective and use a lot more, petrol or whatever it is that you have. But more importantly, you're not going to be achieving your full potential. That's what we can offer to people. When people really understand, how our mind works, how to create this peak cognitive mental state, there's so much more available to people in terms of their performance and their well-being. So again, we really draw on this science of flow to bring this out. We're looking at things that are universal across people and then working one-to-one to really create the insights that are going to make a difference. We take a multidisciplinary approach, as Michelle just said, and there's a few pieces on this slide that I really want to bring to life. Flow is the intersection of peak performance and well-being. So what does that help you get? I mean, for one thing, we know that leaders are time poor. So if you can train people, and we can, to help improve their well-being and their performance at the same time, then that has a huge benefit. It's saving time, it's going to maximize budget, and it's going to help achieve results. Another thing is that when you come at helping people achieve their full potential, then it's going to amplify their performance across the board. Regardless of whether we focus in one area, people see improvements across a whole number of areas. And I want to just touch on the languishing piece as well, because in the top left, you'll see they're proactive, preventative, and positive. We want to help leaders before they get to a point where performance is dropping, before they are so burnt out and overwhelmed that performance dips. We're taking a proactive approach. How do we help people have the tools and the understanding that helps themselves, but also helps their teams? So all in all, our Business Reimagined programs sit right in the center here and develop both performance and well-being together. And insight. This really is one of the things that sets our programs apart. And again, we're both really experiencing a whole range of other development ways and techniques. But, just reflect on something for a moment. Why is it if you ask someone for help and they know and they tell you exactly what to do, sometimes we still don't learn it for ourselves? And, we seem to be able to give other people advice easily that maybe we wouldn't take and we wouldn't apply ourselves. Why is that? It's because we haven't had the insight for ourselves. That's what we try and create in our programs. We're helping people to have, through the group work, these insights, both in terms of peer learning, which research shows is really important, especially for senior leaders that come together, but also the individual insights, both within the group settings, but also one-to-one, really helping remove the limitations of our thinking. So lastly, before we finish up and move to questions, and feel free to add your questions into the Q&A box, we'd like to extend an invitation to you. So we believe in flow. We know that it presents a fantastic opportunity to help individuals and organizations be their best. Our mission is exactly that, helping people realize their infinite potential and feel and perform at their best. We want to spread these ripples and the knowledge far and wide. So we'd love to talk to you and hear more about how it works in your organization and how you can build more flow, recognize the blockers, and make that transition to building a high flow culture in your organization. So please feel free to get in touch with us. And we're coming to the end of our presentation. So thank you for those of you who joined us today. We will be sharing the recording as well. I appreciate that it's busy and it's nice to be able to refer back to this program. But I'd just like to reach out, and we've had one question again. Keep those questions coming in if you want, and I'll just ask Michelle at the moment. The question that's come in is: we focused more on leaders within the presentation today, but don't all employees need this kind of development, and wouldn't everyone benefit from it? What would you say to that?
Yeah, 100%. And I guess the reason that we always go into organizations and start with leaders is that we feel that it's so important for leaders to be able to live it themselves before they start getting involved in leading others towards it. Once we've got that at that level, we've got a real kind of depth of understanding around flow. It's much easier to be able to go in and support the broader teams and really drive group flow and individual flow further down the organization. So that's when we often work in partnership with the leaders, when they've got that depth of understanding and are able to then really speak knowledgeably and authentically about it with their teams. So we all benefit from flow and we can all access it, but we feel and we've seen the benefits of starting with leaders first.
Mm-hmm. Okay, brilliant, thank you. And one of these other questions is how many sessions is the program? It's between 6 and 8 sessions. We have a couple of sessions that are around group flow, which we think are really beneficial. But again, in part of the program design, we'll work with you to think about what's really important and necessary and useful for your organization. So we have a framework that we know works. But of course, our programs, they're collaborative, and we'll get to know your organization and what you need, and to plan a really successful program around that. I think that's all of our questions for now. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules. Feel free to get in touch and let us know your feedback, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.